Okay. Well, some of you may be brand new to this. At Brownfields 2022, we had a booth and several people signed up and they were interested in getting the notes or attending the PLCs. And HMTRI is a technical assistance provider for job training programs. We're operating under a cooperative agreement with EPA. And what our mission is to help communities start job training programs. Once they get them started, the whole idea is how can we help them do the best job that they can do. And we've been doing this since the beginning of the program, and it dates back over 20 years. And over the years, we found the best, and we are a small community. Brownfields in general, the cleanup and assessment and revolving loan funds is a huge program, $500 million, many grantees. We're much smaller. We're less than 10% of that. We're more like 50 grantees. It gives us some real advantages of being small and a small group. And unlike many grants, it gives us the ability to help each other and get ideas from each other and see what other people do. And with the goal of, if we don't have a grant, getting a federal grant. If we have it, re-upping that grant, getting refunded, or doing the best job we can with the money we have. So that's pretty much what HMTRI does. We meet every other week. They're informal up until the RFAs, the requests for applications, were due. We focused the last several months on how to respond to the federal request for applications for the $500,000 5-year grant. We focus on critical issues and starting a program, do's and don'ts in writing a grant, how to approach that grant. Now that the grant is over, we're shifting and pivoting in a little different direction. Now we're looking at what are other grantees doing, what works for them, what doesn't work, what can we do to improve our program, or if we don't have a program yet, how can we build that program or get our program going so that when the next round comes along, we can bid and go for a grant on that program. So what we have here today, and we try to keep these not too long, is a discussion, a little bit about what happened at Brownfields, a little bit about the news in Washington, a little bit about what the status of the grants evaluation has been. And we're going to talk also a little bit about what happens for those of you who may have submitted a grant and it's been rejected already because of thresholds, didn't meet the threshold requirements. And then we'll talk a little bit about community awareness, and it's really the first step in developing your program. So because we don't have a huge group, we like to introduce everybody and find out who's here. And so you get to know each other. As I said, it's more of a participatory community group. And certainly through the whole thing, we like to, we try to, whenever you have a question, just, you don't necessarily have to raise your hand, just speak up and we'll go from there. So why don't we get started? And we'll start with Gerald. I'm just going to go across the screen and introduce yourself and where you're from. Gerald?
Okay, I'm Gerald Wilson. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, but I am on the board of the Butler Heritage Foundation in Hartsville, South Carolina, which has gotten a Brownfield grant. And just trying to learn. And since this is my first time, I was going to ask, what is the job training? What's the job training? What is the training for?
The whole idea of the Brownfields job training program is that they are investing millions and millions of dollars into cleanup, as they are in the Hartsfield area. The question is what are you doing for the community besides that? Are you having people come in, clean it up, and then leaving? You know, what about the human side of this? Are people getting jobs in the community as a result of this? Are they participating in the cleanup? That is part of it. In other words, maybe we should be assisting the community to participate in the cleanup of their own community, rather than having a lot of high-paid people come in, do work, and then leave. And so that's a large part of it. Another part of it is the environmental justice part of this. This program is focused on areas that are overburdened with pollution, underserved populations, people who don't have jobs. It might be ex-offenders. They've had a history in the criminal justice system. They may be people who have gotten a bad hand dealt to them. Well, 20 years ago, I think EPA decided, and this just goes way back to CERCLA, the Superfund bills that were passed, that we can set up a program to train people in the communities so they could participate in the cleanup of their community. Once that cleanup's over, they could go on and they'll have a great job, and they'll get $5,000, $6,000 worth of certifications. Hazmat training might be asbestos, it might be lead or asbestos confined space, transportation of hazardous materials. So they will have a chance to be part of this whole brownfields program. And so what we're here doing is trying to help communities take advantage of this. The money is there, and the question is how can we in our communities tap into that money and bring jobs to our communities. Mayors love this job. It's a jobs program. And one might say, well, why isn't it in the Department of Labor? Well, this is a very small program. It's very specialized, and it's specialized towards environmental cleanup. And so that's why it belongs in EPA. And it has to do with cleanup. Of course, health and safety is part of that, but cleanup of hazardous materials sites. It's about giving people careers and great jobs. I mean, when we have our all grantee meetings, we have past graduates who now have their own companies, they're supervisors. You're given and trained all the skills that you have to propel you up into a career and not just a job. So, Nolan, you want to introduce?
I'm Nolan Curtis. I work with Mike and Steve. I'm a consultant to HMTRI. I've been involved with environmental justice issues and training issues for about the past 25 years. I'm a former contractor with the U.S. Department of Energy. Gerald, I'm interested in hooking up with you. I'm in Aiken, South Carolina. It's my physical location, so we're neighbors. And my background is mostly in design communications, development, and visual analytics. But again, very happy to be part of the team that assists you in both networking and gaining information experience to operate your programs.
Kenzie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kenzie Delane. I am also in Hartsfield, South Carolina. We met at the Brownfield Training Conference a couple of weeks back.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with the Butler Harris Foundation, a nonprofit, and we are in the process of a cleanup grant. But I have a lot of interest in job training development. So Jerry asked the right question. And I have a few other colleagues that are listening. And this is just as a learning process for us. This is our first grant. So there's a lot to learn along the way. So
you're a perfect candidate for what we like to do. The nice thing and the beauty about this, it's an annual competition, and it's not like you have to be a super duper huge organization with all kinds of depth to get one of these grants. You can start up a job training grant in a rural community, and you can run that grant and you can leverage it and build a really good organization, which is much different than most federal grants. It's not a $500 million Department of Labor grant. This is a grant that is grassroots. And the nice thing, and we got to help you get this grant. The nice thing about this is it's associated with brownfields, which fits right into what you're doing. It fits into the demographics and the ruralness of your community. So let's work on it.
Okay, I got one quick question.
Yes.
So to qualify for a potential grant we're talking about, do the individual or the group have to have a brownfield grant in place at the time, or?
No, it's good to have a active brownfields in the community. It's different than the brownfields grants are cleanup and the revolving loan funds, assessment grants. That's different. They're granted differently. This is a different pot of money. It's only about job training, and they want you to have Superfund or a brownfield in your community. So because that's where their jobs would be in cleaning up that brownfields and other types of cleanup that's occurring in your community.
Okay,
So,
thanks. Okay.
Dina, how are you today? Diana.
Sorry, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm doing well, and I'm Diana Napier with the workplace in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Great. Steve.
Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Surtees. I'm with CPWR, the Center for Construction Research and Training. We are not an EPA Environmental Workforce Grantee, but we are an NIEHS Environmental Career Worker Training Program grantee, which shares a lot of similarities to this program. And I'm just here just to see, if there's any good pieces of information I could steal and take back for our group.
We love it. We work very closely with Sharon and her group, and it's a sister program. They originated about the same time. They have parallel paths. They're quite different. We have these annual competitions, and as we just discussed, there's small grants to individual organizations rather than the big, larger branching that NIHS has. There have been times when there's some overlaps, but they're very similar. Your career worker program parallels ours very closely. You have a lot more latitude in terms of things that you could teach. So each program has advantages and disadvantages. We work off each other, and many of our grantees are in both programs. OAI, for example, Recycle Forest, Cypress Mandela, Chris Litzau up in Milwaukee. So it's very feasible to do both programs. They can't overlap and they can't duplicate, but they can work in a synergistic fashion. And we do a lot of interchange, and we have joint meetings with the NIHSCP EWT, the Career Worker Training Program. So welcome, and hopefully we'll have something that will be useful to you. Kenda.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kenda Freeman. Like Steve just said, I'm here to borrow any information that I can to take back. But I'm a contractor with NIHS. I work closely with Sharon Beard and others as a part of the worker training program through NIHS, as well as some of the environmental career worker training program grantees like Steve, who's on and just introduced himself. And I just met Mike and Nolan and a couple other you folks on here at the Brownfields Training Conference a couple weeks ago. So just looking forward to staying plugged in with these webinars. Thanks so much.
Good. We like to share each other information. Cindy Manning.
I am Cindy Manning from Coalfield Development in West Virginia. I didn't get to Oklahoma, but you may have seen Marilyn Wren.
I'll tell you.
Are there.
I'll tell you, Coalfields is one of my favorite grantees who was there and then left when Brandon started that program in coal country. and then they kind of went away and they came back. And this happens many times when someone will be in our program, just like our PLCs. They'll be in a program for a while and then they'll go for a while and then they'll come back. So welcome back to the BJT program, Cindy.
Thank you.
Deb?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Oops, is there two Debs?
You're
Deborah?
Deb. I just saw that.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
we'll do the first one then the second. How about Mass Hire first? She's on my
Okay.
screen first.
That's me. Hi, everybody. I'm Deb Faracco. I work at Mass Hire Workforce Board, and we are a Brownsfield grantee. And I'm taking over from Bruce Mendelson. So I'm here learning all the ins and outs from all of you. And I'm here in Massachusetts.
Okay. Buddy, how are you?
You're on mute, buddy. Okay.
No, he's just being quiet.
It was a really, really good conference, first of all. And hello to everybody, and for those who made it or didn't make it. But I always learn something at these things. Mike, you and Steve and Nolan are just constantly educating people. And I just appreciate having the opportunity to learn more. I had a lot of fun too. So.
Thanks, buddy. He's my favorite community activist. Keeps everyone going. Marie Conrad.
Hello, I am in Hartsville. I've retired a couple of years ago. I was an electrical engineer, worked at power plants.
Nice, nice.
So I have some experience with confined space and asbestos remediation and that sort of thing.
Fantastic. You'll be a great member of their team. Chris?
Chris Frazier, the Hazardous Foundation here in Hartsville, South Carolina.
Great.
Pete and I had an opportunity to attend the Oklahoma EPA conference. And a lot of things we taken from there, and I was a little late joining, but we're very excited about the opportunities we have in Brownfield. And some of the things I've taken away from it, the most important thing is getting your community involved with what you're doing. So this is my first time on. I'm here just mostly to observe today, but Chris Frazier about the Hazardous Foundation here in Hartsville.
Great. Deborah, City of Tacoma.
Hi, Deborah Trevorrow from Yes City, Tacoma in Washington State. Tacoma's had several of these grants, job training grants, and seem to help quite a few people, especially with jobs, which is great. And applied for this last one, and so far so good. I'm hoping.
Good. You know, Tacoma was one of our favorite grants and became an alumni, and now they're reapplying. So good luck on that. I'd like to see you back. Sheila.
Hi, my name is Sheila Squire. I'm from Hartsville, South Carolina. I also serve on the Butler Heritage Foundation board along with Chris, Gerald, and Kenzie, and we're all looking forward to learning more about these jobs opportunity programs.
Okay. Hey, Linda.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Morgan. I am the Brownfield Job Training Coordinator for Region 5 at EPA. And I want to welcome all of you all to the PLC, the first one, I guess, coming back. And also, Mike, let me apologize ahead of time because I do have to step away from the computer at some point for a few minutes, but I just wanted to say hi and let you know. So don't mean to be rude, but just for a few minutes at some point.
We won't put you on the spot. It's always nice to have a EPA person on the call.
Thank you.
Michael Long.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Long out of Kansas City, Missouri. I'm with the Full Employment Council. I see you, buddy. How you doing? No doubt. It's good meeting everyone at the conference as well, who I did get to meet. I'm with the Workforce Development Agency, though. We provide financial fiscal management for trainings to get individuals into the brownfield and employed in that industry. We've been doing it for a few years, so we're excited to apply again and hopefully see how it goes and move forward.
We want to see you back. Judy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judy Jackson, and I'm from Hartsville area with the Butler Heritage Foundation.
Great. Adriana?
Hi, everyone. I'm Adriana McBride. I'm a contractor for the sister program ATEEC, which is evolving into Earth Center, and that's in Davenport, Iowa. I'm currently in Chehalis, Washington, though, and interested in connecting with someone from the city of Tacoma in terms of these conversations too, if possible.
Fantastic. Well, we could put you in touch with the people in Tacoma. Shantae.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Shantae Benson, Weston Neighborhood House, Wilmington, Delaware. We are Region 3, and I am the EPA coordinator for our environmental technician program.
Okay. Okay. Who did I miss? I know this takes a while, but I like to do it because we get to know who's here, and it's different every couple of weeks. And you'll be getting notes on Friday that'll go in a lot more detail of what we're doing and what we talk about in this particular session. So we'll move on. But again, I think it's good to get to know each other because we have that advantage of being a small group. So was there someone did someone have a chat box? Okay. This is from Kenda. Okay. You're in Durham, North Carolina. Okay, great. Well, that's just down the street.
Hey, this is Amy. Can I pop in real quick? I think I was in
Yes.
it.
Okay, come on in.
Okay. My name's Amy Penny, and I am with the Alaska Forum. We are in Alaska, and we serve rural Alaska mainly in our jobs training program, and we are a Brownsfield grantee. So we've been a grantee for a while, and we're excited to keep it going.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Nolan, who's going to give us a rundown of what's going on, both in headquarters and with HMTRI, and then we'll move on from there. Nolan?
Okay, thanks, Mike. And good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. At the Brownfields 2022 conference in Oklahoma City, EPA did announce a date for the 2023 Brownfields conference. And so that will be held in Detroit, Michigan. They announced the dates August 8th through the 11th, 2023. And so again, there'll be educational sessions and the registration location will be announced later in the year, but be sure to pencil that in on your calendars. Again, that's Brownfields 2023. That's the nationwide EPA conference, and that'll be Detroit, Michigan, August 8th through 11th. Our HMTRI grant recipient directory is available for download. The Certified Employee Finder is a database that provides contact information and key certifications offered by each of your EPA Brownfields job training programs. And so the Certified Employee Finder was distributed among employers at Brownfields. Actually, we printed a few sample copies, but we don't print. So people need to go online, they can read it, download it, access it at the Brownfield site. It's located on the brownfieldtoolbox.org site, and you can use it interactively and just scroll through it, or you can download it to a PDF and print it out. So again, lots of information on that Brownfield Toolbox site. We would like you all to earmark October 12th for this year's virtual networking workshop again, it's going to be a one-day virtual effort. And I'll talk about our two-day all grantee meeting a little later. But this one's October 12th. It's, we'll be registering you as participants. We'll be asking for your input on the agenda and content ideas, including some virtual tours and presentations. So Steve Fenton and myself will be contacting you for videos. We do have an after-hours session where we like to showcase programs, and certainly they don't have to be IMAX quality videos. We just want to see what you're doing and share that with other people. So if you have videos or inclined to do a small production or review of what you're doing, we appreciate that because it enables us to share it with other members. But again, please earmark that date, October 12th. And the in-person event, which is our all grantee meeting, is planned for the second quarter of 2023. And we'll do that after the fiscal year 23 awards have been announced. So it would make more sense to do that program and come together after the grantees know who got the next round of grants from EPA. That meeting in the spring of 23, it's our 25th annual all grantee meeting, and it's scheduled for Alexandria, Virginia. The topics will include pretty much the full gamut of things you run through in your program in terms of grant administration, recruitment, retention, curriculum placement, and partnership opportunities. But the main thing is that this meeting provides a platform for you to continue conversations on critical issues and best practices among successful programs, as well as lessons learned. It's facilitated by HMTRI and grant recipients and EPA staff and outside experts. We do include stipends for housing and incidentals on the main 2 days of that conference, but we are not able to reimburse for travel and other expenses. But again, it's one of those things we want you to be aware of and kind of pencil in because we know that your ability to earmark money out of your grants may run up against some calendaring issues then in terms of when the program is and when you're actually allowed to spend. So we're trying to arrange that so that you can appropriately bill it to the grant program. And then we did attend, and some of you did, the Brownfields 22, and we focused on our exhibit on grantee placement and places where you as grantees could focus and network. And we did have quite a few employers and other agencies come by, as well as we did some networking outside of the booth. And so there are some opportunities there that we intend to look forward to and take advantage of in 2023. And it was great seeing many of you there and getting to meet you face to face. And the FY23 Brownfield Job Training application follow-up and schedule. It's now, some of you may have applied and may have already been notified that you did not make the first criteria cut. We're very interested in hearing from you in terms of your feedback and observations about the process and your feelings on it. We will, and Mike will, encourage you to hang in there because there's opportunities to improve on your application process and hopefully be much more successful in the next round. The grantee cycle, the first 4 years will focus on program development, training delivery, and placement of your cadres. And then the final year has been added for additional training, placement, tracking, and program sustainability. And so the milestones for the FY23 BJT cycle might look like, the schedulable or the schedule. We'll give you copies of this so you have it. But the spring, summer of 2022, the RFAs that came out in June. So we anticipate that possibly that'll repeat next year around the same time frame. We don't know yet from EPA. The applicants had about 60 days and new grantees should begin planning their program 6 months earlier. So again, if you're planning on applying what we believe will be next year, or if you weren't as successful as you wanted to be, there's things you need to be working on now and not wait for that 30, 60-day window in order to get started. And the proposals were submitted October 2nd, as you all know. In the fall, winter, the applications not passing will be notified. We're notified. So if you have no news, in a way, that's good news. That means you're still in the pool or in the running. Otherwise, you were notified. And those were applicants that didn't pass the threshold criteria. And the evaluation will continue during the fall and winter of 22. And so sometime during that process, again, this October 12th, plan on attending our virtual networking workshop, and we'll bring you as up to date as we can with information we have on that process. And then pending the final review, we understand that about 25 programs will be recommended for the FY23 funding consideration. And that should happen, again, as far as we understand, before April of 23. So again, hang in there and keep in touch. In spring and summer of 23, we're looking forward to attending our in-person grantee meeting in Alexandria, Virginia. And again, we'll provide the room and board for the main 2 days of that. And again, you'll have to fund your own transportation. During spring and summer, the grant packages will be sent to successful applicants. The award letters and acceptance by the applicants need to be completed. The work plans and grant administration is completed prior to the final award. So you might pass the threshold of being eligible for the grant, but you still have work you need to do with EPA, and that'll be directed by EPA in terms of what else they need to see from you, as well as work within your own organizations to make sure that, yes, we can accept the conditions and provisions of the grant. And then the funds available for training are released typically before September 31 of 23. So again, it's a hurry up and long process, so parts of it are very rushed, and then other parts of it take a bit of time and back and forth. And from 23 to 28, your training cohorts continue with the program refinements, keep improving, you keep developing and improving your partnership development and placement. And again, your experiences will kind of dictate how you do that. Training and placement progress with ACRES, which is the federal reporting system, that needs to be done. That is how EPA understands not only your progress, but all of the grants that are given across the various agencies are entered into this one federal database. And we'll have conversations and somebody from ACRES discussing that process at our network and grantee meetings. You probably need to do some consideration regarding program expansion, improvement, and especially sustainability. How do you keep this going? How do you, make sure your well-oiled machine stays well and stays oiled? I guess is the best way to put that. And then your placement, funding, development, and program continuation is considered at the completion date of the grant. And then your final placement, tracking program continuation plans, and the grant wrap up, that'll happen through 2028. So again, that's kind of a long range view of the 5 years, and we'll be sending this out to you in print. So you don't have to try to remember the details, but also our process in HMTRI is to go through all of these processes with you to help you make sure that you're understanding and getting the best information and collaboration. And that's why we're all here together with each other. And so with that, if there's no immediate questions, I'll turn it back over to Mike.
Well, as Nolan said, as you probably surmise, this is a long haul, almost a way of life type of program where the times to organize are long, the times to establish partnerships are long, but once you get into it, you're into a program that becomes part of your community. We've had grantees who have been doing this for over 20 years. We've got some that have been 10 years or 5 years and they're in and out, and some are short term. But in every case, it's a program that once you get job training into your community, it becomes something that the community supports. And as Nolan said, if you submitted a grant on August 2nd, and in 15 days you didn't pass the threshold, just wanted to give you a word of encouragement. This happens very often, particularly to first-time grantees, where that first time they might think this grant is like many others, where they can slip through it and write some things down and the money would be awarded or not awarded. This is a very thorough grant. You pretty much have to have your program plan pretty well laid out. You have to have your partners in place. You've got to have your advisory committee. You've got to have your curriculum ready. So it is there's a lot of preparation involved. So often people will submit a grant and they'll get rejected, but that's okay. It gives you an opportunity, and in the notes, you'll all get notes on Friday. All the regional coordinators, contact information is there, and you can call them up or email them and say, I was rejected, but I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to consider reapplying next year. And I think you're going to get a lot of encouragement from the regional coordinators. Yes, this is what you need to do. And this is the path. This is the problems that the evaluators had with your grant. And this is where I think you can improve. And we've had many grantees, many who have said, you know, I tried 1 year and it didn't work. And I even tried second year, but I got it on the third one. I went to the PLCs. I saw what other people are doing. I went to these grantee meetings, the workshop on October 12th. And you're all invited to not only October 12th, but also in the springtime in Alexandria. And I had a chance to rub elbows with grantees who were successful, who have had projects for a long time and have turned that little grant, which used to be 200,000, into multi-millions. And the reason, how do you do that, is because once you get one of these grants, other money comes to you. And this is particularly relevant now. We've got a lot of money coming down the pike, not so much, this program went from 3 million to 12 million this year, but you hear all this talk about environmental justice, Justice 40. And I want to just spend a second on, you're getting thrown all these acronyms, Justice 40, EJ Screen. What do all these things mean? Well, Justice 40 started about 2 days after President Biden was sworn in. And he said, we need to do something to these underserved, overburdened communities. And I hereby state that I want, through all of government, I want a focus to be put on underserved, overburdened communities. And he said, we're going to go further than that. As far as money that's allocated to, whether it's climate change, whether it's housing, whether it's clean energy or water, housing, or pollution, hazardous materials cleanup, I want 40% of that money in the agencies to benefit. Now, this is an important word, benefit these underserved communities, these communities that we've ignored many years. And it's a subtle ignoring. The agencies will give grants to large organizations, machines who can write good grants, have big programs set up. And so the old question of those who have get, well, he said, we're not going to do that anymore. Now, I don't know that this will really end anything, in that they say the key word is 40% of the benefit. will go to these communities. It doesn't mean that these big companies can't still get the money and then do things that will benefit the communities. We're really pushing for, let's get the money into the communities. And I think EPA in many ways is interested in getting money into the communities. And that's a difficult challenge because it's a question of capability. Do you have the technical expertise? When you're a small community organization, it's very difficult. I started a nonprofit in my community to see how hard it was. Very hard. You have a difficult, you don't have the management depth, you don't have the resources. It's very hard. And when you're up against these federal agencies who are trying to give out tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, how can you apply for this? But there is a big emphasis, and it's called Justice 40. Now, there is no money associated with Justice 40. It's an attitude, okay? And it's an attitude that President Biden wants all federal agencies to adhere to. In other words, he says, when you're considering your grants and giving out grants, and I want you to consider that 40% of these benefits of these grants, where you're doing work, is actually going to help these underserved communities. And as a result of this, there is a lot of money that's going to justice, whether you call it environmental justice, social justice, that will be going to the overburdened, underfunded communities. Now, the first question everyone asks is, well, how do you define an underserved community? This is the question the agency would ask. You want us to give grants that's going to fund certain communities. Well, where are those communities? Who's going to define them? And that was the first question that was posed to the Council on Environmental Quality. It's part of the White House administration. And they said, well, let's develop a model, and we're going to call it CGIST. The model CGIST. It's to determine what communities in the country would qualify as one of these 40% of underserved communities. Now, that's no easy task. They set up an advisory committee. Now, EPA had a committee. I'm going to throw in a couple of acronyms at you. NEJAC, which was the National Environmental Justice Advisory Committee. It was called NEJAC, and EPA has been way ahead of the game in terms of serving underserved communities. In fact, that's what this BJT program, the Brownfield Job Training Program, is all about, serving underserved communities. But not all programs have been that way. Well, there was a NEJAC, and so the White House decided, well, let's call it WEJAC. It's a White House Environmental Justice Advisory Committee. And they were going to come up with and develop a model that could tell all these federal agencies where the underserved communities are in this country, so that when they start giving out grants and developing programs, they could identify, oh, okay, we are doing programs that are going to help these underserved communities, and you've developed this model that is going to help us. Well, you know, everything that the federal government does is loaded with controversy. They went out with a public hearing, public comments. They got about 2,000 or 3,000 comments back, and there were a lot of holes poked in the model that they developed. One was it didn't consider race. It was one of the big ones. And of course, it's almost given that many African-American communities are also underserved, overburdened communities. Well, it didn't consider that in one of its criteria. So there was questions about that. There was other issues that the issues that you are defining to make something qualify as underserved isn't additive. In other words, they have different criteria, whether it's air, water, solid waste, food desert. They have these criteria, and they didn't consider that if you had a lot of little criteria, they add up to one big one, which would make you underserved. So they're still ironing this all out. But you're going to hear this acronym CGIST, and it's not of real concern to communities trying to start a job training program. It's more for agencies. It's to define what communities are really underserved, and whether agencies are complying with the spirit of Justice 40. And that's what it's all about. And then, and again, as I said, there's no money involved in all of this. It's within government of how government is supposed to change their attitude towards, you know, building nice parks in nice neighborhoods to, no, build nice parks in neighborhoods that need it. And that's the attitude that this administration is trying to get across. And that's what Justice 40 is all about. And these are in the notes, but now how does that, what about EPA? Let's talk about EPA. EPA and the job training program that we're talking about today, it's defined as serving underserved communities. In other words, if you want to get past the evaluation process and score high in terms of getting your grant, you have to demonstrate in the grant application, which we'll talk about in future PLCs, you have to demonstrate that this is an underserved community. And how do you determine that? EPA has developed their own model, and it's called EJ Screen. It's called, and EJ Screen is an analytical tool that, and we'll talk about that in future PLCs. You could go in and put your zip code in, and you could find out what the conditions are, and they have all sorts of criteria that will tell you about your community, whether it's demographics, whether it's pollution, what kind of waste sites are in it. So when you're developing your application, which we get into later in the year in these PLCs, you'll be wanting to use EJ Screen, and it's an analytical tool. So when you hear these words thrown around, CGIST and WEJAC and NEJAC and EJ Screen, the one that you really need to learn to use, which we'll talk about later, is EJ Screen. And that's an EPA model. And you can go just Google EJ Screen, and we'll probably in one of these PLCs, we'll just bring it up on the screen and show you how you could zoom into your community and find out what your community looks like. What are the demographics? What are the pollution sources? Are there waste sites? Are there brownfields? What kind of pollution you've got? And that's what we're really focusing on when we talk about these brownfields job training programs. But we definitely meet all of the criteria of Justice 40 that President Biden asked for. We definitely 100% of our communities are underserved, overburdened communities. So, but not everybody in federal government is, and NIHS is the same way. They did a study and they examined their career worker training program, and they found that they're all, as part of their evaluation criteria, also in underserved communities. So as far as job training goes, I don't think we have to worry too much about Justice 40, other than that Justice 40 is the impetus to bringing, while it's not bringing money in, it's telling agencies the money that's coming, both in the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, bipartisan infrastructure plan. You're going to be getting all this money, and you better be focusing it on underserved communities. And that's what Justice 40 is about. It's kind of a sleeper. It's in the background, but it's going to have a huge impact moving forward for our grantees. And it's a little bit off of track, but we're focusing on getting you job training, really good job training programs in your community. But there's going to be a lot of money floating, not some for us as grantees, but around us. And I think we want to keep our eye on what's going on around us. There's going to be a lot of, and in the notes, you're going to see the Office of Environmental Justice. Every month they have and I always put the link to that in there. They have a discussion like what we're having today about what's going on in the Office of Environmental Justice. To be honest, they've got more money than they could spend right now. They've got to spend FY22 money from the American Rescue Plan, and they're talking about setting up hubs around the country to help communities write grants to get federal money. So there's a lot going on, and we want to keep our eyes on it, because while it's not directly talking about our job training program per se, it may have a lot to do with our leveraging ability and other grants that you all may want to apply for that will supplement the EPA grant. So we're going to be keeping an eye on all of that. So I just wanted to pass that on. In the few minutes we have left, I'd like to just spend a minute on what's going to happen to those of you who are operating under the old grant. And you're getting ready to, this is the time of the year when you're getting ready to set up, when you look at the cycle of job training, this time of the year is when you start lining up your cohorts, your training cohorts, because you want to have them in the fall and winter, early spring, and the hiring season for people that have our credentials. The hazmat, the cleanup credentials, is often in the early spring and through the summer, where a big, kind of like construction jobs, it's a big hiring season and they're looking for people. So when we look at the summer, early fall, we're looking at getting ready to recruit our first cohort. And I want to talk a little bit about that for those of you who have grants and are operating your grant now and you're getting ready to start your next cohort. Once you get the grant, and to get this grant, you have to do a community assessment, and you have to line up your advisory committee and community organizations that you're going to be working with once you get the grant. And you've done that homework, and say you get the grant or you've got a grant. Now it's time to set up the actually begin your recruitment. There is a stage between community assessment and actual pre-recruitment, and I call that community engagement. This is a time when you have to, basically you have to market your program. You have got to convince, and you've got to go in there early, and you've got to hype your program. And I've heard grantees say, we have the attitude in our community that it's a privilege to get into this program. If you get into this program, you're a special person in your community, because it's hard to get into. And once you graduate this program, you're going to have credentials that'll last the rest of your life. And many programs, when you start, the community doesn't even know this. They don't even know about your program. Oh, there's a job training program. Maybe it's like some of the others, or the WIB, the local investment board, or the job center says, oh, you could go here and there's an 8-week training program you can go through and you can get some credentials. That isn't good enough. It's not, this program is not a build and they will come. It is a build, and then you've got to promote it big time so that everyone knows about your community. Now, hopefully, when you did your community assessments, when you were writing your grant, you did a lot of the legwork. You contacted City Hall, you've set up an advisory committee, you've established contacts for community influencers, you've probably contacted some prospective students. Well, now is the time to move to the next level, where you've got to spread the word, and you've got to say, there is going to be a series of not job fairs, but fairs associated with getting into this program. And these will be the dates that'll happen. This could happen in a lot of ways. It's basically educating the community in what this program is all about. You would be amazed at how many people don't know what people with these credentials do. They don't know. In fact, we did a focus group at Morgan State, and a lot of people were afraid of this program because it exposes you to hazardous materials, and they had misinformation about the positives of this program and where it could lead you. So a lot of this is educating the community you're working in and saying, this is a very professional job with certifications that not anyone could get easily. And if you can get into this program, you have a ticket to a great future. You have to get that into the community. Now, how do you get that across? And I'm talking from what grantees have told me, successful grantees that have done a great public relations or marketing job or community engagement, whatever you want to call it. They say we use public meetings. We love public meetings whenever we have a chance. Now, here's a point at which you've got the grant already. You're going to go to have these public meetings and you're going to announce this program. You're going to talk about what the people who go through your programs can do. You might even be able to get some past, if you're an experienced program, you can get some testimonials from people who have gone through the program, some successful graduates who will do it. Santa Fe Community College does a great job. They have a radio show, and they'll get on the radio show and they might have some graduates on there. This is what I did. This is what I was doing before I started this program, and look at me now, and this is what I'm doing. So they're basically educating the program. Another idea that I think Noel will probably talk about in a little bit would be local news. I'm not going to talk much about that because I think he'll fill it in. Getting a local news story about your program that is starting. And again, what we're doing, we're getting the hype up. Now, that sounds pretty commercial, but it's what you need, because the end goal of this is you've got to have the largest application class you can possibly get. The reason that these programs underperform or fail is they grab people off the street. Now, it sounds callous. We have to find people who are deserving, underserved, need the work, but also can get a job when they're done. In other words, there are a lot of people out there who I guess what I'm trying to say is you've got you're limiting, you've got 20 seats in a cohort and you're rationing those seats. I'm not saying necessarily take the low-hanging fruit, but I'm saying you have to find the best of the most deserving, underserved people who really are motivated, and you can make a life for them. In other words, you can give them skills that they would not normally have, and they will take it and they'll run with it and they will be successful. Now that's in contrast to taking someone off the street who is not motivated, maybe wouldn't put the effort into it, might drop out halfway through the program, and may not be able to get a job at the end. There are so many people out there. If you market this program properly, there are enough people out there that you'll be able to find the motivated, deserving people that will become successful from your program. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Well, to get there from here is this community engagement. If you don't engage, you're not going to have many people applying. So you want to be all over the place, and you want to have, ideally, I remember OAI, there was a time when they'd have 20 positions, they'd have 200 people applying. That's another problem. How do you get from 200 to 20? And there's that, we'll talk about that when we talk about recruitment and assessment, but you go through a sieve process, and at the end you've got this killer team of motivated, hardworking, deserving people who are going to go on and do great things. And that's what community engagement's all about. So as far as getting the community as a whole involved, you've got to do those things, and we'll talk about those in the notes. But you also, in addition to that, you've got to motivate your participants who are going to be in the program. They have to be educated. What is an environmental tech? What are these jobs? What do they do? How much do they pay? What's brownfields job training? What is that? Is there a future in it? And then you have to also educate to get the cream of the crop. You have to, what are your entrance standards? What are your requirements to get through this program? You don't want to sugarcoat it. This is going to be a tough program to get through. What is the selection process? What about drugs? How forgiving are you? What are the expectations of the students from the program, and what are the expectations of the program of the student? And you don't want to sugarcoat it. You want to present it. This is what we have. We've got lots of people who want to do this, and they're deserving. And this is a reality. Do you want to go for it or not? And that's what this community engagement is about. Now, when you're talking to your prospective students, they're also going to be working with the other people you've talked to, the community leaders, the faith-based organizations, because they'll know about this program and they'll say, I've heard about this program. What do you think? Should I try it? And they're going to say, I've heard really good things about this. Or, if you're an experienced grantee, they're going to say, I could introduce you to some people who've been through this program, and they'll tell you what they think about it. And so this is this whole idea of community engagement. So that's what we're talking about today. And Nolan, I remember you talking about, when we talk about community engagement and hyping your program, what you told me about local news.
Yeah, and we'll go into this in more depth. I think we'll probably do, a kind of session on this notion of your media and communication. So a number of you are involved in new technology medias, in terms of the internet and what it has to offer. But there's traditional media, both print and broadcast, that you can take advantage of and use to your advantage by developing relationships with these local reporters and your local newspaper of record, and even things like your church bulletins and the city council newsletters, those kinds of things, where when you have a good news story, you actually help them by writing that quick press release of saying, 20 successful graduates, or this person, went from, rags to reasonableness, in terms of getting a job or getting certification to change your life, but hyping your programs and getting that word out of, this is what the program does, and this is what it really does for people, because, all of that is local, and your whole secret to success is going to be local. You're not trying to place a national story or regional story, but you're just trying to get it out that, yes, we, promote your graduating classes, promote the expertise of your trainers, promote, the fact that you even have a program and this is what they have to offer. And so we'll be giving you very definite, specific techniques for approaching media, both traditional media and, new and alternative media. And there's a number of programs where, frankly, that doesn't work. Well, let's be clear. One of your best, medias is word of mouth. It's going to be your own participants and graduates who are going to really sell your program. And so you're going to find that a lot of the people who come in are relationship people. It's somebody's brother or sister or cousin or mother or father or son or daughter, where they were successful and they said, oh, I can do that too, versus necessarily a, set of moving lips like mine, or even a slick ad, and so we encourage you to try lots of things and to look around and work with your, collaborators here. And they all have things that work and things that didn't work for various reasons. So those lessons learned are really important, because it might save you a lot of time and dime and heartache and putting your hope on a strategy. But you also want to measure your media result, so you understand where, if we're going to have a website, or if we're going to have a TikTok, or if we're going to have something else, what's the result of that? Is that really working for you, or is it just something that you're doing because you heard that everybody does this? And your resources are so limited that you just don't have time to spend on a lot of things that aren't going to buy you results. So, but one of the critical things is, don't bypass the power of those people right around you who are maybe can't do it on your instant timeline, but are always looking for the good news story, the positive story, the something they can say that's happening in the community, and use them as amplifiers for your success.
Well, certainly photo ops with the mayor or a city council member and someone in a hazmat suit and being on News 5, it's not, as Nolan said, you don't have to be on 60 Minutes. News 5 will get you a lot of inquiries. And again, it's the whole idea of, and these people who have gotten their grants, it's the whole idea of this background blanketing the area. Oh yeah, there's a job training program and they're going to get certifications, and these certifications are worth $5,000 or $6,000 to employers. That's going to help you not only in recruiting students, but in recruiting employers. And they're going to say, oh wow, why aren't we hiring these people? So it's got benefits all through the program.
So business placement and business promotion is also a very good type of article. You know, so-and-so, you know, is now a supervisor at, or is now a, you know, general manager at. Again, those promotions, your chambers of commerce, your service organizations, you know, Rotary and whatnot, those are just excellent places to make those kinds of placements and announcements, because those rooms are full of business people. They're full of the people who are operating in your city, and generally not just operating economically, but wanting to do good. So I really like the service organizations, if you can get in front of them, your local chambers of commerce, if you can get in front of them, just to talk about your programs or to promote somebody who's been a success story in your programs.
Does anyone out there have any experiences that they'd like to share in terms of getting their program going and finding that people are trying to get into their program or asking about their program? It's great when you start getting people that want to join your program.
So one of the things we've experienced with SOBRO in our CUNY program, we're collaborating with the City College of New York as co-grantees, is recruitment and talent acquisition was my background, and the CUNY team kind of does the educational background. So we really were proactive in our approach to kind of splitting the outcomes equally. So they kind of head up the educational and training piece, and we partner up with different consortiums, the Consortium for Worker Education and city-funded agencies, the Department of Small Business Services, particularly in the industrial business zones where they would need these candidates. So we're always boots on the ground attending these employment events, kind of gauging and surveying the employers to see who it is exactly they're looking for, what trait, what skill sets. And we also allow them to kind of be a part of the registration session for the courses, so that if there are, you know, roles that they're looking for to fill with entry-level folks, and then, you know, give them wage growth over time, they can kind of source those people, because sometimes people don't have the time to wait for the course to start and then take the course. Like, they kind of need employment right now. So we have a particular construction company we work with, JVT Consulting. They hire general laborers through the orientation sessions who are in the training pipeline, and then they offer them wage growth once they finish the credential.
I like what you got. You're the boots on the ground, and you're out there. The problem you have with academic institutions is they want to stay in the office.
Yes, they do. And I'm not being funny, but
I mean, it is what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need those people.
We shake the trees and we get that stuff going. And, you know, we're going into our second year of the grant. And I kind of got hired after the grant, you know, MOU and everything was kind of signed on. I got hired in like maybe March of 2021. And what I noticed was, to be totally transparent, they weren't go out and get out into the community. People like talent acquisition and career services folks are. So yes, the educational piece is super important, and that gives, you know, its own strength to the clients and give them this collegiate experience to learn these hard skills. But ultimately, the outcomes outcomes do come from the placement, and they come from being where people are needed. And I find that by attending these employer-focused events, you find people who are a bit more engaged, and you find clients who have a bit more to gain from this because they're already in a field, they've gotten their feet wet a little bit. So it's not like you're training someone who's green, pun intended. But also they are someone who's really tired of making minimum wage or tired of getting by gig to gig, and they're looking for something sustainable that where they can make an earning wage. And it means more to them when they see, listen, I'm tired of just being a general laborer. I'm tired of just doing masonry. And they're looking to transition as they get older in the workforce and become more of that safety and occupational hazard awareness person, and become that subject matter expert rather than that grueling, backbreaking work. And then, yeah, it needs to be done in infrastructure. Yes, it does. But we find that our older clients get more interest out of it that way. And we find that our younger clients who want some exposure in the field find that classroom experience to be so rewarding because, again, they're not teaching courses in school too often about the type of work that we do, which is occupational hazards and, safety. So it's super important to kind of get young people who have some semblance of interest to attend these info sessions with these folks who are a little bit more seasoned in the field. And I love when the conversation gets going and both groups get to kind of share their insight.
So the neat thing about Christine's job is she is the community engagement on the front end and the back end, it sounds like. And you leave the geeky stuff to those guys at the university or wherever.
Yes.
But you're going to get them the best feedstock, and when they come out, you're going to connect them with their employers. Is that correct?
Yes. And honestly, through this program too, over time, we've gotten to see city universities role in this expand as well. And they have now this workforce and infrastructure department. So we're going full steam ahead as we look at the needs. And it's been a learning experience and a developing experience for both partners. But ultimately, getting out in the field and getting in the community, because with college, these folks pay tuition, they're going to be there. They're coming to you. Whereas on the career services end, we got to go out and get them. So we get some of the high schools. We have an architecture and construction high school in our neighborhood, not too far from Sobro. And I mean, when I say that, I mean like a stone's throw, like 5 blocks. We speak to their graduating classes, and we also speak to their young adult internship program as well. And because one, they have that classroom experience, they're kind of getting some of the very entry level skills about it, and to be able to take some of our classes we offer on the weekend. So we offer the OSHA 30 in construction as a Saturday course, as a sampler course for folks to take the full-on program, and that lets us gauge their success rate, if their retainability. If you can do a OSHA 30, then you can kind of spread out and do the ASMT and all that good stuff. So it's one like an incubator course, so we can kind of figure out their sustainability, but also it's a great way to get the community profile out there. We actually had one person that was engaged at the high school level tell their dad about it, and the dad wanted to join the BJC cohort. So we're really kind of just shaking it up where we can, and we're also attracting folks who maybe didn't understand how where the trajectory of this is, and kind of getting them around, hey, listen, this is really where jobs are, and you really want to get those credentials now, and if you don't have to spend some money out of pocket, then no.
I love it when I hear a grantee who says, well, we've got brothers and sisters, and just like you, this is sons and fathers. They saw what happened to their sibling or their friend, and they said, can I get into this program? And really, this is community-based, word of mouth. It's fantastic. It really is. Good job.
I want to leave with 2 thoughts, and now we've kept you longer than we usually do. But one is that no matter where you are in the grant process, you've gotten rejected, you're still waiting on pins and needles, you're running a grant. It's just this notion that development is a relationship. And so you can't do your development and your partnering when you need something. You have to develop the relationship before you need something. And the second part of that is people are looking for partners, not patrons. And so your best relationships are ones where there is some kind of exchange. You're not just asking them for something, but you're also able to give that partner something. And so If you keep those two things in mind, that development is a relationship and it's an ongoing relationship that sometimes occurs, over years, not days or months, but that people are looking for partners, not so much patrons. And so, again, there has to be some kind of exchange, even if it just makes them feel better, or if it checks a box for, EJ40, but usually it's like, to an employer, we can offer you things in terms of free training on this cadre of employees for this set of skills and certification that otherwise you'd be paying for. You have to do the follow-up so we can, ensure our graduates. And so when one of the people from our program goes to your program, we don't just cut them loose. We're actually there checking up on them. We're working with you for lessons learned of how can we strengthen our program and make sure that our product is much better and fits your needs better as an employer. So, again, development equals relationships and partners, not patrons. And you probably get sick of both of those themes, but they're just foundational, I believe, to what you're doing. So,
Any other comments that anyone would like to share with the group? Your experiences?
I don't have a comment. I do have a question. I'm trying to reach out to Christine to, might be in Connecticut. I'd love to be able to talk with her. She's in the Bronx. So in the chat, I asked for
Do you have
your contact info.
Do you want me to send it or do you want to put it in the chat?
I'll definitely drop it in the chat. I have no issues with that at all.
Thank you.
We love to be able to expand our partnerships.
Thank you.
That is what these things are all about. Let's partner because we can be stronger sharing.
That's right. We are
than
stronger
individually.
together.
That's right.
and I guess I'll reach out to Gerald Wilson and all your partners in the Heritage Foundation in that area. I'm not too far from you. I'm in Aiken. So the next couple of weeks, maybe I could come over and check you all out and look at what you're doing. And so if that's amenable to you guys.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
We could
let me know.
We could put you on a track to getting one of these EPA grants. That'd be great.
Okay.
But just get to know you. I mean,
And I think hopefully you all are on the PLC list. If you're not, if you're not, I could put it in the chat.
Gerald, you got an invite on the PLC list, right? I'm gonna pick on you because you're the first one to identify yourself. Okay, so we have a contact at least with Gerald.
Okay, good. Get everyone on the PLC list. We'll send you these notes, and it's got upcoming meetings and it's got funding opportunities, even though they're not job training necessarily, but the peripheral, and they're synergistic to what we're doing. So, okay, well, with that, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Same time, same place, same login, and we will send you reminders. Friday, you'll get the notes to this one. And certainly if you have any questions, you can just respond to the notes and we can help you out there.
Got it.
Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
All right.
Thank you.